Welcome to another episode of MLO, the Modern Loan Officer podcast. I have a special guest again, and we've kind of like been on this train too recently of like having guests on, but truthfully for like listeners and stuff, I feel it's good to not only just hear from Casey on a podcast and different stuff, but hear from other people, other partners of mine in the business, hear their, backgrounds and stories and things like that. So today I have one of my trusted real estate agents in the studio with me, Caitlin Fish with Knipe Realty.
Hello.
Yeah, and it's Caitlin's first time in the studio, first podcast, and we're just going to kind of break down some different topics for you guys that we thought might be useful. And we're always talking on the phone. We were just talking about this, but we'll get lost on conversations for like an hour or 2 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And we find ourselves like constantly thinking for our clients and consumers and ourselves and what's going on. And we came across like just concepts of like house hacking, and we're talking about for our investment clients. And so we're like, well, let's hop on the podcast and talk about it. So we wanted to kind of break down just a couple of those for you today, just kind of some house hacking tips, how to like buy, turn it to an investment property, things like that, and importance of getting pre-approved while you're out home shopping as well, and kind of go over some of those subjects. But I want to kick things off with kind of getting to know Caitlin a little bit. And so will you tell us, Caitlin, first off, like give us some of your background, like where did you grow up, stuff like that?
Well, I grew up kind of in Clackamas County area, moved out to St. Helens, through high school.
Yeah.
And then found my way back out to Clackamas County. So, and how I kind of got started was, sorry.
You're good.
I need a little water. Sorry. Can I cut that part?
No, we're live on the podcast. It's okay.
Okay.
You can get your. I stumble on words all the time.
So I got started. I was actually in dentistry for about 12 years.
Okay.
And
completely different profession than real estate, right?
Yeah. So I was a dental assistant just right out of high school, and I was primed up to go to hygiene school and had everything ready to go for that. And I just realized, like, I'm just not happy.
Yeah.
This is just something that I don't want to do. And 2020 rolled around, and I got really down the rabbit hole of bigger pockets.
Yeah.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad like every person does, and then I just got sucked in. And so we were actually looking to purchase our first property, and somebody close to me, my cousin Sloan, actually, he told me to look at duplexes, and I just never thought it was within our reach.
Yep.
So
most don't for a lot of people.
Like if it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't have, gone down that road. But thankfully, he did, and we started looking, and I, just deep dived into bigger pockets, and that's where the light bulb went off, and I was like, I just can't do dentistry anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes that like light bulb moment happens too. And for listeners and viewers, will you explain what the deeper pockets is, or the bigger pockets?
Bigger Pockets is like a community of real estate investors. They have lots of really useful podcasts and books. I mean, I read all their books, probably listened to all their podcasts, just all different avenues of real estate investing. Yeah. Yeah.
So like we always are preaching, I think it's always about the education too, like getting educated while you're going through this process, whether you're just buying as a first-time home buyer, or you're looking to maybe buy with the game plan of turning that home to an investment property and starting to collect properties that way. It's education, because we are in a different world of stuff. It's higher finance, it's properties, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, usually transaction-wise. Rules that change in and out, regulations that change. And so it's like you want to be educated in this. And then
Yep.
that's what we try to do, at least here on the MLO show too. It's just kind of break stuff down for our listeners and honestly our industry peers, because we do have a lot of loan officers and real estate agents too that listen. So
Yeah. And I was really surprised when I got into real estate, like how many agents didn't know about real estate investing, like, or the term house hacking, or, you know, I mean, that was something that was really surprising to me, I guess. Like, so I really love working with like the first time investors, because like teaching them like what I did, you know, with our duplex house hack, how I set it up, how I screened tenants, how I've streamlined the process of, you know, rent collection and expenses and, you know, tax stuff, and just kind of helping them get started. So,
yeah, it's in our business, you think like everybody's like a high level of real estate, owned multiple properties, been investment. That's not the case a lot of times. And a lot of times, sometimes they haven't even owned a home yet, you know? And you know, you're renting. And I'm not here hating or judging, because I always tell everybody, clients or even referral partners, number one goal is you got to have a roof over your head. So whether that's renting or owning, you got to start there, and then we transition. But that's, I think, like one of the more addicting things of this profession is like the knowledge and like what you can learn. And you can do a smaller down payment like that, but buy, you know, this property, or you can flip. And like for me, it's like you look at it as this whole external world of options rather than just like a one-time buy thing, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. I mean, specifically, you know, with house hacking, you can buy a property that just has a basement. You know, you can rent out the basement. You could rent out rooms to help with your mortgage payment. You can buy anything from like a 2 to 4 unit for that owner occupied, which you're the lender, so you could tell us all that about.
Kind of break it down, but that's like the importance part of that is like there's so many. Just even buying a house or a property, within that property, there's ways to like chop it up too.
Yeah, just a single family, you know, with a daylight ranch. I've had people, you know, that is set up with an additional kitchen, a separate entrance, bedroom, bathroom on the low. You know, that's potential right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a legal, you know, like, or separate property. I mean, you could have a roommate on the lower and do this pretty much the same thing. It's still like considered a house
level
hacking.
House. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so before we transition kind of into some fun house hacking information, was it just the bigger pockets that made you want to get into real estate then? So just kind of stumbling across to that stuff, and then you were just like, I'm done being in the dental world.
It was 2020.
Everyone looking at me, smiling, breathing on me, around the teeth.
Yeah. 2020, we were locked. I mean, I wasn't working because in dentistry, we shut down for 3 months. So I was just home, you know, being a stay-at-home girlfriend, and then just home cooked meals every night. Like, I'm sure Eric
Were you on the farm then or not?
No, we were actually living on a floating home.
Oh.
Yeah. I had my container garden, like, dialed.
See, even
it's so much time to do
after you've known somebody for a while, you still like learn stuff new. About your partners.
We were renting a floating home, and we were looking for a single family to purchase. But my cousin Sloan, he's a very successful investor, and he's like, "You guys need to look at a duplex." And I was like, "I just didn't even think it was within our reach."
Yeah.
And then we started, and then I was like, and then I'm a natural born researcher. I research everything. I read every book. I read every podcast or listen to every podcast before, you know, I do anything. So I pretty much read every Bigger Pockets book and just really, and it ignited this fire in me that I feel like I never had in dentistry. Like the Sunday scaries is real. Like, and, you know, just praying for the weekend. It's like there's there's just more to life than that. And real estate was something that really, like, I just got so excited about talking about it. And I just woke up one day after doing all that school, applying for dental hygiene school. I was like, my life is not going to be different than what it is now. I might just make a little bit more money, but I'm going to be unhappy. And that's honestly what changed for me. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing.
yeah,
Passionate. And I think that's for a lot of people too. It's maybe just the burden of like the captive, the 9 to 5 with you're only going to make so much money. You have to
no
work
freedom.
so much, you have to work as many hours and you're always capped at that, whatever salary amount.
Yeah.
And then there's also a certain limit to how many times you can go up and move up in the ladder and increase those salaries.
There's
So
a cap.
self-employed or going maybe with your own investments and stuff like that seem like a good way to at least create some additional income. Because I'm always about because I've preached here on the show too, like even with our career and professions, economy based and swings, like having high and low years is something you have to be able to manage when you're owning a business, and let alone just being in real estate in general.
100%.
So a lot of times that's just a lot more higher risk for someone that they're willing to take, and it's safer to have that base income. But that doesn't mean that you can't still do something for yourself, like getting into the house hacking and stuff like that. So
it's good to diversify, your investments, especially being self-employed.
Yep.
And creating different passive income avenues and streams of income that way, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's smart if you can have 2 to 3 incomes coming in.
And retirement, thinking about retirement, like, can we depend on Social Security forever? I mean, we need to have other things in place when we retire to be able to survive out there.
Very true. We're still young over here, so there might not be, any Social Security left. We'll have to see. So you got to make sure you're investing.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
Investing in yourself. Absolutely. As we keep it, pretty kosher here on the show. Okay. So last part for you though is, when did the farm come into play?
Oh, we lived at the duplex for almost 2 years, like about a year and a half. And we were, and that was always our goal, right? We lived there a year to satisfy the owner-occupied loan requirements. I probably would have kept going, but I think, Eric, my fiance, and just wanted more space, and I did too. We're thinking about getting married, having kids. Like, I really wanted to get back out to where I kind of grew up out in Clackamas County, so we ended up buying a 5-acre property, but me being the financial person, I was like, asset versus liability. Yep. I always look at properties, if it's not making you money, it's a liability. So how can we make this into an asset? So we started, raising pigs, and I make my soap and my tallow and stuff. And we started the farm, and so we are able to, Do
you have a name for the farm?
Wild Fern Farms.
Wild Fern Farms.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, for anyone out there, if you're looking for soap and tallow.
Yes, I do.
Make
soap and tallow. And then we raise red wattle hogs too.
Oh.
Yep.
Pigs.
Yep.
Do you name the pigs?
No.
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 Because of the process. Yep, makes sense. Well, see, you learn a little bit new. Well, for our listeners and stuff today, we did want to get into kind of this investment, the house hacking information, and specifically kind of to just start house hacking. You're going to hear that term out there a lot, and don't get confused, because I think there's a couple different ways that it is broken down. House hacking meaning, buy a property, own it, turn it to an investment, and so forth, and keep moving them all. Then over a time period, you own 5-6 properties. Also, though, there's also means of out there is finding a property that's maybe distressed, going in and fixing it up, and then also selling that, making a profit there. So a few different ways of house hacking. Today, we're just going to kind of focus on buying a property, turning it to an investment property, and some different ways that's approached. So a lot of times, as a first-time home buyer, many people don't realize though that you can buy more than one unit as a home, and so it's not just like a single-family residence. Conventional loans and FHA loans, they allow you to go with a 1 to 4 unit purchase for a property. Now, down payments and stuff like that will change a little bit, but what that means is you could essentially buy a single-family residence, you could buy a duplex, you could buy a triplex, and you could buy a quad
Yeah.
or 4.
You can find one.
If you can find one. Now, that's where your trusted real estate agent comes in hand, like Caitlin, and she hits the streets. But think of that, though, when you're going out there to purchase as an opportunity where you can buy essentially 4 units in one transaction. And, if you bought a single-family home, that's 1 unit, right?
Yep.
But this would allow you to go out there and purchase 4. And those other 3 units with the rent and stuff that can be used, and there's going to be some haircutting on that for qualifying, but can still help you qualify for that home purchase too. So it's also another way to increase your buying power actually a little bit by being able to get some of that rent from the other units. So think of that. And that's also something now people, I think, are more trying to be aware of in this day and age of purchasing rather than back when it was just like find a family home, keep the family home 40 years.
Yeah, I definitely think that within our market right now, the multi-generational, the people trying to, best friends going in on it together and finding that multifamily, like a duplex, for instance, it's much more popular. And then I think that happened, after 2020, 2021, and then, the interest rates went back up. People are just trying to get in together. So it's becoming a lot more popular. We're seeing just people looking multi-generational or together or just trying to rent it out to anybody to help lessen their mortgage payment.
Yeah.
And I think it's super smart.
The combined effort you're seeing for sure.
Yeah.
We'll kind of I want to break down a little bit of how you could do that, how you could go about like buying a home, turn it to investment property. But starting out of the gate, like your conventional loan, so your first time home buyer programs out there tied to the conventional loan, 3% minimum down payment. That allows you to purchase 1 unit. So that
just happened, right? Like, didn't it just happen? Or is it 5% that they just lowered that?
Yeah. So then what we saw, though, which is helpful, is you can purchase 2 to 4 units with 5% down.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, higher for your first time home buyer. If you're looking just for the 1 unit, you're going to be around that 3% down. But at 2 to 4, at 5%, actually isn't too bad if you think about it, because again, those additional units. So if it was 2 units, the other unit, or if it's a 4 unit, the other 3 units that you're not living in, that rent that's from there, even if there's not current renters, there can be market rent analysis done where you'll get a rental analysis appraisal basically done on the property and tell you kind of what the average rent should be. Portion of those rents, typically 75%, can be used to help qualify or offset the mortgage payment.
Yeah, and that's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And so right out of the gate, you could own your own property and also own rental properties at the exact same time, right?
And set yourself up for the future and for, generational wealth. So that's the point, right?
Yeah. But let's say maybe you just did the 3% down. First time home buyer, 1 unit, single family. Now at least you own a primary residence. You will get the benefits of that. That'll help with things. And now you can know, okay, going in the future, maybe we're going to purchase another property and keep this single family as a rental then. And same thing, get a renter, help offset the mortgage.
Yeah.
Now, if you are truly, though, an investment purchase or an investor, we're not going to be living in this property as a primary residence. On a conventional loan, that's going to be 15% down payment. And that gets you 1 unit as an investment purchase. You got to go 25% for 2 to 4 units on investment purchase.
So it's really an advantage for somebody to go in and do the owner-occupied, FHA, conventional VA.
Yeah, VA too.
Live in it, fix it up, rent the other side. And then once you've satisfied the owner occupancy part of the loan, you can then move on to the next one. So, which is how long do they need to be there? A year?
Yeah, and a bare minimum, it's usually a year to a couple of years, but it's about the circumstances on why people change. A lot of people usually start families,
Yeah,
increase size, and
exactly.
work relocation, and all types of different reasons that would warrant like a move from a primary residence to an investment purchase. Because you never want to go in, when you're buying, like we just laid out the different down payments, like the first time home buyer, 3% down, things like that. You are buying that as a primary residence. And then from there, what you do with the property, keep it, sell it, things like that, obviously depend on kind of your life situations.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you're getting another property and you can keep your departing residence, I highly try to encourage that for clients, because I think keeping properties is the way of obtaining like generational wealth and being able to then maybe pass that stuff on later on to your children and things like that, rather than just buying a property, selling a property, buying a property, selling a property.
Exactly. I think it's a good way to, as you step up,
Yeah.
to keep it if you can and rent it out, and doing an analysis ahead of time to kind of see where you're at when you purchase the property will set you up if you did decide to move, which is part of kind of what we do. But it's a good way to kind of build a portfolio for retirement, generational wealth, your future, your kids, all of those things. So.
Yeah. And then on the FHA side, because we're talking conventional loans, FHA, 3.5% down minimum, and that gets you 1 to 4 units.
Yep. That's what we did.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
change there. And a lot of times people are like, well, I've always heard bad things on FHA and VA. And that's truly because you're just getting information still from like the 80s when these things were taken advantage of and weren't good and no rules and stuff changed. FHA loans, conventional loans are the two most common loans used for home purchases. They really are. The FHA loan was created for your first-time home buyer in the 600 credit score range with lower down payment. Like, that's what it was created for. The conventional loan allows for lower down payment options. They're just a little bit more credit score sensitive. Higher the credit score, better interest rate options and pricing. Lower the credit score, higher mortgage insurance, things like that. But if you're in that situation, you might be doing 3.5% down for your 1 to 4 unit purchase, because, like I said above, conventional is 5% for 2 to 4. So apples to apples, just in down payment form, you can get in a little bit less down payment with your 1 to 4 unit purchase than you can the conventional.
Yeah. And I mean, one strategy that I know of is, like with us, getting in on the FHA is a lot more attainable for a lot more buyers and a lot more, buyers that we've worked with. Getting in on the FHA, the PMI is with the life of the loan, but there's always the option to refinance into conventional and then use the FHA again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So-
And that's kind of, as you gain equity, appreciation in the home, things like that, interest rate markets change, you look to refinance and absolutely get yourself in a conventional, go use the FHA again. Let's just say, though, you are an investor and you're looking to add to your portfolio. You already own an investment property, you own a primary residence. We're just looking to get another investment property. There are certain loans that are catered exactly to that type of transaction. And some of these, and a lot that I do with clients, are called a DSCR loan. And that is a debt service coverage ratio loan. A lot of words out there, but essentially this is an investment property purchase. Can you do standard conventional property purchase with a conventional loan? Yeah, absolutely you can. But these ones are made more from an investor standpoint, as in a normal loan process, looking at your incomes and pay stubs and all that type of things for qualifying. These DSCR loans really are based off of your borrower's credit score, the history of ownership. So are they a first-time investor, or have they had, properties, investments, experience in this? And then their down payment. So that's kind of the three things that borrower brings: the money to buy, and credit score, essentially. And then the property qualifies themselves based off the cash flow from rent versus the expenses. And typically a 1 would be a break even. So if you had a property that rented for $3,000 a month and your expenses are $3,000 a month,
Perfect.
to one. That works for these DSCR loans. They'll go a little bit less too as well. Some down to 0.8, even maybe lower, but all depends on property because some take a couple years to get like your rental going and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's a great option for your investors out there to look at for adding into stuff because now you can take out any maybe wonky stuff that was going on with them. Like maybe their tax returns aren't showing enough, bank statement deposits, whatever. Self-employed. And, everyone's listening and laughing like, oh, yeah, because I'm self-employed and I write off everything. You'll never get $1. Well, that's why some of these loans, no. And I tell truthfully to the clients, like these are alternative loans or still conventional options or just different ways of looking at qualifying you or the property because of the way you guys as people and everyone's done their own stuff over the years. So like we want to help self-employed people get loans. So that's why you have different options out there to help them because we all know you write everything off.
Well, that's the point, to avoid as much taxes.
That's all the personal choices out there. But
when you're buying a house, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Buying a house a little bit different, but DSCR loans out there, great option. Qualified clients. Minimum is 15% down payment on those.
That's great.
So not bad at all. So 15% down.
That.
Fun facts. Here's a couple fun facts on these debt service coverage ratio loans, DSCR. So 15% minimum down payment. Some options do not require large deposits to be sourced, meaning like family member, if they wanted to like give you money or someone like another investor you had to help purchase this property, maybe the down payment, they could gift you that kind of money and you don't have to go down necessarily the legwork of paper trailing the large deposit for it. Yeah, and then last is you can be first-time home buyers or first-time investors for a DSCR loan. You don't have to have like a rental property or history of being. You can
like a
step
long track record to qualify
and just be a first-time investor, first-time investment buyer, and do DSCR.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's a good program for those that maybe already have their primary that they're happy with. Like me, for instance, we did the house hack, but we have, our forever property. So in the future, I would probably go that route for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's always nice to try to have like your primary, your forever home or your settled home. And then you're just kind of expanding on your investment portfolio. Any other thing on house hacking that we should cover?
I mean, in our market, I think that the real awesome thing is the appreciation. I mean, in our market, we don't have as many cash flowing properties, right? If you can break even, that's great. But the appreciation in our market has been known to be, year over year, pretty good. So I think people get hung up in the analysis paralysis is what they call it.
Ooh, that's a fun word.
When you're analyzing properties, to look at, upon move out when you are looking for a duplex, is like being fixated on the cash flow because everybody tells you it's all about the cash flow, which really, I mean, I personally believe if you're breaking even on an investment in the Portland metro area, you're doing pretty good. But our appreciation is really where
especially
it's
in our
at.
area.
Yeah. The appreciation is what's going to help you, acquire more equity. And that's where a lot of investors, build their wealth is through the equity, not the cash flow.
Yeah. And people forget like that's also a reason if it works to purchase, now to always consider it. You hear us always saying like, when's the best time to buy real estate? Now.
Yesterday.
And that's, actually it's yesterday. It's not now.
Uncle Tom said yesterday.
And, obviously interest rates change, they go up and down, and that does affect payments, but, home values increase, and that's that equity. And I think on a very small scale still, even kind of over the last couple of years with the higher rates, right? I think it's still 3% or something like that, minimum equity growth. And if you think about that, 3 to 6%, on a $500,000 house, that's 15 to 30 grand value change.
Yeah.
The house last year was 500. This next year it's 515 or 530, depending on the equity and the appreciation growth. So
I think the number that they released for February was in the Portland metro area was like around 6%.
Yeah.
February to February of 2025 to 2024. Yeah. So, I mean, what other
to 530?
What other investment are you going to make? 6%.
Yeah.
Year over year. So.
And here's the thing too: is even if it's not cash flowing, because a lot of people would look at that like, oh, well, my mortgage, rent, and everything, like I'm still negative $500 a month, right? Well, yeah, but now you're owning a property for $500 a month, right? Because if it's coming out of pocket, because let's say rent is $3,000, but your all-in expenses are $3,500, you're bringing $500 of your own money to the table. It's not cash flowing completely, not yet. Rents can always increase in the future potentially. You can cover the gap maybe in a couple of years, but you're still owning a property for $500, essentially. Yeah. Now,
and when it comes to taxes, I mean, you're taking a loss at $500, so you're not paying taxes on that income. Which
there's those tax returns. We are not CPAs by any means.
We're not financial
advisors.
CPAs.
We are not CPAs or financial advisors.
But a big reason why I got into it, and why a lot of investors do is the tax advantages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depreciation is something that as a provider of housing that they're telling you that you can write off. So, and okay, I'm not a CPA, but depreciation is one of those things that's really helpful because an average homeowner doesn't get to do that. So. Yeah. That's I mean, there's a lot of different, and talk to your CPA about it, but there's a lot of different tax advantages to house hacking and buying a duplex or doing that versus just a single family home.
No, I agree. Now transitioning out of our investors and house hackers, we're going to talk about the importance of getting pre-approved before home shopping. And I'm telling you, you hear me preach on the show constantly about this, but I'm going to keep going until it gets understood how important it is to know your financing, know what you can afford, how much the monthly payments are, the closing costs, the structure of the loan, seller credits or no seller credits. Are we negotiating? How are we doing it prior to hitting the streets with your trusted real estate agent like Caitlin over here? Because it'll make you have, I think, a better experience overall. You're going to know what you need to look at. You're not going to be worried essentially on the financing part of budget and payments. You know that going into it. Now it's focused like on the home and the details and the surroundings and like what works for you. Because I just had it the other day. Client come to me. They're in contract and they have not figured out their pre-approval. So I scrambled to try to put it together and I was able to put it pretty quickly. But people forget, like, you're in contract. It's not submit an offer, get it accepted just to be like, well, maybe we'll buy this home. Like, no, you're committing.
You need to be fully prepared.
Fully prepared. Things start happening. You have 3 days to turn in earnest money.
Yep.
You don't have a pre-approval. You have, I think, is it up to 3 days, right, to provide a pre-approval letter? Sometimes your financing is difficult and complicated. It's not easy. It depends on what you've done. Have you changed jobs a bunch of times?
Also, I wouldn't even submit an offer without a pre-approval. I mean,
even better point. As an agent, you should not be submitting an offer without a pre-approval letter, and at least talking to the lender probably too before, just to make sure. Because there's also, we've talked about it, different people out there that might fire pre-approval letters off just based off an application from a client. No, we want to review that. We want to look at the income, the credit. I want to try for everybody involved, my home buyers, my agents, the sellers, that the financing looks good, the client looks good, we're going to have like a smooth transaction. It all looks good to me.
Yeah, it's super important. I mean, I have countless times where, going shopping with buyers, I'm like, hey, we need to, get pre-approved, talk to your lender, like let's take this property and put in the numbers to see what it looks like. And they missed the shot. It went right on the market. That's super competitive. And, there's 5 other offers and they're still trying to work on getting pre-approved. And especially when a listing agent or a seller has 5 offers on the table, and then there's this one without a pre-approval letter, they're not verified. How do you know? Would you pick that offer based on, good faith?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, it's going to happen, so I know it. It's just, if you can kind of wrap your head around that, because it's still one of the biggest purchases that you're going to do. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It does move quick. It's a different world. And as soon as you sign the contract, then you're getting bombarded from the lender, myself, which is, disclosures you need to e-sign. You're getting stuff from your realtor, Caitlin, that you need to e-sign. Title is sending you things. And you don't want to be rushing to try to figure out your financing at that point of the process.
Well, and you don't want to lose out on the place.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you finally, after looking around at 10, 20 different houses, and it's like, this is the one. Well, it's usually the one for about 5 other people too. Mm-hmm. And if you're not ready to go, then you lose out on it, and it's really heartbreaking.
That's fine. Yeah, it is the one. It's also the one for 5 other people as well. So what are we going to do?
In a certain price point, in a certain area, that's decent, that's livable. In this market, the market's kind of weird right now, but some sit on the market for a long time. But some of those that...
What's average day right now?
Average days on market?
Roughly.
I think probably like 40, but that doesn't seem right, because there's the ones that sit for forever.
I was going to say, it's a range. You see it from 30 to 60, and then some are 60 to 90, and just all depends.
And then there's a duplex we just offered on yesterday, and there was 5 other offers. It was on for a day.
Yeah.
So it's in
a week. Yeah.
It's in the right market. It's the right price point. At all of those factors. You're not the only one looking at it. So and those people are prepared. So I think it's super important to get pre-approved before you even start shopping, just to have an idea of what your buying power is, for one, and are you comfortable with this payment, and then you're ready to go. Yeah. So
and the strategy, maybe you also need to have the closing costs covered, because you only have the down payment. So hey, going into this property, I need X amount of seller credit negotiated. Definitely. Your strategy of purchasing the property is handy. And then guess what? You've been pre-approved. So as you're shopping, you see a house, different price point. Guess what it is for the lender to do? Really easy, just to change that real quick, give you a new pre-approval letter for that offer on that property.
Yeah, and it helps me when developing the offer, and my strategy on how I can write an offer that's going to win is being able to talk to the lender and strategize before writing an offer. How much seller credit can we do? What can we do with it? How is that going to help them? Where do we need to be a price point? All those things can help closing. How quick can we close, Casey?
Yeah. Always the day-old question. That'll be forever in history alone.
How quickly can we do it?
As fast as you guys want. It's usually the case. With being a team, though, I think the pre-approval part is important. And remember, your lender should be advocating for you, calling the listing agent, helping them feel good about your letter, your offer, get the deal in contract.
That is so important. I've had compliments from agents about you calling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That they've never had that happen before. And sometimes, honestly, it's not always the money or the terms. It's the personability and the communication of your agent and your lender that's super important, that has won offers.
No, I agree. That's why I always think work with someone that you trust and feel good about. It's not always about cost, price, interest rates, stuff like that. I think it really comes down to that human aspect, because it's a big purchase, one of the biggest ones. Everyone's involved too, so there's a lot of hands and emotions and stuff like that, and you just sometimes want to know you're working with someone that you feel good, you trust, you can communicate with. It's gonna, we're all in it for the same goal of getting to the finish line, happy transaction, everyone's sold or purchased, and yay, and we're moving on. But I've also had listing agents before accept offers because I called and they
Yeah.
were like, you know what, I'm not really getting along with this buyer's agent at all. They're not really my personality. They're not like, but I feel good with you and I trust you and I'm giving them the vote of confidence. I've done this for many years, so yes, the loan looks great. We'll take it from start to finish. I'll communicate on every step. You'll feel good, even if you're not hearing from that other party at all. You'll know from at least me we're all good. So I've seen offers get accepted just because I called. So I think it's really important,
Yeah.
and you should be advocating for your clients. Like
We're all in this together for the
like they're
same
our
end
clients.
goal
You've
to
pre-approved
close.
them. Like you've done your research. Like
Yeah.
they're good, or else you wouldn't have pre-approved them if they couldn't be, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like yes, we do feel like we have the best clients for you, Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller. So
Yeah.
please
Talk
take the
them
offer.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Um,
important.
I do feel we'll end it too with this of like getting pre-approved prior to shopping. Important of before shopping a home. Also, if you're going to shop lenders during that time when you're feeling out your lenders, you're getting to know them, doing the pre-approval process, and then that way you can go forward. Because trying to shop for your lender after you've gotten a contract would really puts everybody in a really bad situation. One, you got your offer accepted with a pre-approval letter from a lender. And so part of that acceptance is them having that letter, accepting your terms and your financial backing. And now you're changing that. So sometimes you have to get that okayed with the seller, and they're not okay with changing lenders all the time.
It's usually in the contract. I mean, it has to be okay with the seller. Yeah.
Yep. And
To
then
switch lenders.
you're also now switching lenders and switching all your stuff over, making sure they're good, they can work for it. Every lender's a little bit different. And you're just kind of wasting time up front that you should have just taken care of that before going into contract. Yeah. So it's super important to try to get all shopping done before going into contract, I personally believe, because it makes it chaotic. And a lot of times you might push a closing date back because you had to waste the first week of the transaction with switching lenders and inspections and whatever you're doing, but mainly switching lenders. And now potentially earnest money's back, you're paying extra costs. It's just important to have that stuff done up front. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I
sign your buyer's agent agreement.
Yeah, definitely that too. No, I think that having the lender, I mean, and I think the biggest thing with buyers is they're scared to, do the pre-approval to have their credit ran and then have it done again and then again and then again. So, I guess maybe you could explain. I mean,
on the credit side stuff?
Usually, yeah. I mean, we've worked with buyers that
for any fear of like, well, my credit score is going to drop because I'm getting pre-approved, you have to look at it like this. The mortgage credit report is one of the most detailed ones you're going to have done. It's different than an auto loan, credit card, any other credit report pull that you've had is not the same as a mortgage. A mortgage shows you all details, all three credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They report scores differently, and they show you all the history. Some reports I've seen like stuff from like 1980s and stuff on there. It's going to give you the full meal deal. But where a credit score dropping from your credit getting pulled comes from is who, what, and how many times inactive have you had people pulling your credit. The credit reports for the mortgage, we'll see on there, it shows anyone that's pulled someone's credit and who has done that and when in the last 180 days on the credit report. It's called the inquiry section, so it shows like who's inquired on the person's credit. Now, normal consumers probably only have in 6 months, maybe 2, 3, 4 credit pulls, Maybe they got a new car or something or a credit card or something. But where you see people's credit scores drop is someone that has their credit pulled a lot and active. Some people have it in 6 months pulled 10, 15, 20, 30, 35 times. That's almost like every couple of days getting your credit pulled for the Macy's card, the Nordstrom's card, this credit card, this auto loan, attempting this. And so the score droppage comes from them looking at that person and being like, are they just actively shopping or are they actively seeking debt?
And usually within a certain time period, it's not dinged as many times,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
like 30
I
days,
think like
something like that.
and remember, we are talking about credit out there, which is, don't get me fired up on that. It's a completely different rant of like rules and, show me anywhere the steps and rules of credit, because they make them up and it's for us to kind of follow this rule. But essentially, like, it's a couple polls every 30 days for like a mortgage. If you're shopping for a mortgage and you had a couple people, 2 or 3 credit polls on there, it should see that as you are shopping for a mortgage and not ding you for anything. I think where you see that drops is, oh, it's another mortgage poll because this is the 7th one in 6 months with all your other credit card polls too and everything else. Yeah, doesn't look like you're getting very many offers from lenders and stuff, so they might see a drop.
But and back to that, I mean, I think some buyers have reservations about like, well, I want to wait till I find the right one, and it may be 6 months down the line, but it's still good to get pre-approved and then just get those additional documents later.
Absolutely. Yeah, good
that's
point.
That's something that we can do.
Great point.
Yeah.
Once you're pre-approved, and, that's based off of today's documents, current documents. And what I tell clients is after about 3 months or so, we just want to make sure we're updating stuff, updating your bank statements, updating your pay stubs, keep the pre-approval process going. Sometimes it takes people longer to buy a home.
Yeah.
2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And it's not hard to update your pre-approval. Literally update your pay stubs, bank statements, update your credit report every 120 days. Keep the train moving, baby.
Yeah. It's that easy.
Yeah. So you obviously know who to call for your home financing, and your real estate agent needs, me and Caitlin. But any other tips, tricks before we land the plane on today's episode? We talked about house hacking, how to buy, lower down payments, own, turn to a rental, repeat the process. We talked about importance of pre-approval, a little bit of Caitlin's background. We got to know that anything's possible. You can just one day have the light bulb go off and have a complete career change.
Yep. Just wake up and say, hey, I'm going to get into real estate.
Yeah, I'm going in it for myself.
I will part with one of my favorite quotes that from Robert Kiyosaki, which kind of it was something that spoke to me with this whole house hacking, and kind of something that got me into real estate and got me into investing, is that financial freedom is freedom from fear. I think a lot of people, based on fear and are scared to get started, but
Love
don't
that.
be fearful.
Say it one more time.
Take risks. Financial freedom is freedom from fear. So,
and that's how we will grace and leave you today on today's episode. You know where to reach out. Please drop comments, and if you want to follow Caitlin and stuff, we'll make sure she has all her link.
awesome.
Appreciate you for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll check you next time.
The MLO Show is hosted by Casey Carpenter, NMLS 1458123, Addie Nett, NMLS 1542184, Michael Mealy, NMLS 963197. Not a commitment to lock or lend. Terms and restrictions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Mortgage Express, LLC, NMLS Company ID 40831. Licensed in Arizona, Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho. With licensing in California by Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, DFPI, under the Residential Mortgage Act. Mortgage Express is an equal housing lender. For more information, visit www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org.